So this is an episode I've been looking forward to for a while, for the reason that I've bought all this extra equipment to make sure it sounds fucking pristine. And there we go. There's a swear warning right from the start. So this episode is going to be a Christmas special where I've got myself a beer in hand and we're going to talk 2021, a year in review. What's that? Is that like straight vodka?
Can't even see my drink because the fucking background thing. There you go. I've got the weird hide the background thing on. I can't remember how to turn it off. Sadly, I am H2O today because last night I had 6 old fashions and I'm a little bit.
Oh, I tell you what, my tolerance to alcohol has gone through the fucking floor thanks to dieting. Ellie had a couple of friends over last Wednesday, and I recorded a podcast episode with, I think it was Elliot's one. It was Sam McGowan. And I finished the episode with her and I went out and joined them. And she had them all wine out and had 3 cups. And when I say cups, I mean paper cups. I'm not pints. And I woke up groggy. And then the Friday afterwards, I had my client took me out for Christmas dinner at a place called Mr. Wolf here. And the wine was pouring and I felt worse again. I was like, Jesus, man, I used to be able to hack it. I don't know if it's dieting or going over 30, but something's definitely happened to me.
Mate, for me, it's like, I weren't too drunk. I was all right, but sleep was fucked. And then a combination of no sleep and way more than I should have drunk, just days I was right off. But I've had loads of cookies and cinnamon rolls, so...
I mean, you're carved up for this then?
Massively carved up. Like sugar, bruv.
Oh, mate, I am the same. I went to Disneyland yesterday. One of the best things about being in Hong Kong is that Disneyland is like a 30-minute trip away. And it was unbelievable. Talk about being festive in closing off a year in a good way. Like, there's something... I'm going to use the word magical. I'm going to throw in a term from Disney. About going the lights turn on the Christmas tree. They had fireworks, which were a bit shit. Yeah. But it's the first fireworks I've seen in about 3 years at all. So that was unbelievable. Great way to spend Christmas. So going into the topic of this podcast of 2021 review, give me a rundown. How was your 2021 been?
So 2021 for me started with a complete hit of the reset button in terms of where I was living, where I was working, how I was spending my time, everything. This was me going solo, starting my own thing online when the gyms eventually opened up, because we started 2021 in lockdown. Which again was meant to be a circuit breaker, and then things weren't open until
2 weeks back the curve.
Yeah. So when gyms finally opened, I want to say April. Memory's a little bit hazy. I want to say April. Then I started training some one-to-ones as well. And then boom, that's been my work, figuring out my message, figuring out who I want to serve and how best to serve them. And it's gone all right. I've been distracted with other things. I've chased some shiny objects. I've done some things wrong. I've given up way too early on other things, but we're going into next year in a much, much clearer position of what I need to do and how I need to do it. So it's exciting. Other than that, I had a couple of intentionally failed relationships. Is the only way I can put it. So we're not worrying about that in 2022. There's better things to chase in 2022 than this.
Thankfully, I've not had any intensely failed relationships. I think it would be much more intensive mine fails.
Yeah. So I'm in this weird place. Obviously, I don't know who listens to this and what they know about me, but I am divorced. And so I'm in this weird place where it's still within, the divorce is only final this year. And the marriage split 2 years ago. So it's still kind of fresh. So you're still kind of finding your feet in this new weird dating scene, which just so happens to be coming out of a fucking pandemic as well. And everyone's lost the fucking plot. And on the apps, it's horrific, bro. It's horrific. I hope you never split with your missus, but just for the fact that no one deserves to go on these apps. Tinder, Hinge, Bumble, they're all horrific.
I met Ellie on Plenty of Fish.
Really?
Yeah. I'm a success story. I know they're rare, but I am a true success story.
But that was pre-COVID. That was pre-pandemic.
Very true.
Everyone losing their fucking marbles. Because I don't know what's happened.
I think there should be precursors on these dating apps for like COVID madness bollocks. Like they should be able to put like, yes, I press lift buttons with tissues. Yes, I've got 400 rolls of toilet paper, because they're the red flags. There are crazy people out there that want to be around those people that like anti-back after every bite of a meal. I don't want anything to fucking do with that. So could we have a warning label?
The thing that puts me off is when a girl, and I've had girls show me guys doing this as well, is when someone's got one of their photos and they're wearing a mask in it. I'm like, it's not ironic, because everyone over the fucking world had to wear them. Like, it's not even an ironic joke that you're on Tinder wearing a fucking mask.
First comment that will piss people off on this episode. Is it just because they're ugly as fuck?
Exactly. What are they covering? What are they covering up? They've only got one photo, and it's a mask, and or maybe more photos, but it's they're stood on a beach looking out to sea, and you can only see their butt and whatever. Then they're 100% covering something up. 100% covering something up. But again, it's what are you trying to? What message are you trying to put over there? That one, you obey the rules. 2, you're scared as fuck. 3, I don't know, you're trying to make a joke out of it, which is not really that funny, but so many of them do it. I don't get it.
I hate, it's not going slightly tangent off the dating stuff. What I really hate is when you go on social media, Facebook in particular, because they do the frames for your like your profile picture. It's like, got vaccinated. I'm like, I don't give a fuck if Steve, who I haven't met in 15 years, has been vaccinated. Why do I fucking need to? Good for you. Like, it's just a arrogance play, because we assume that we should all be vaccinated. Most of us think it's a good idea. So I don't need to know. Don't throw it in my face. Who cares?
Yeah, it was the same with we can go further back. What was the name of that? What was the name of that poor French place that got shut up? Charlie Hebdo?
Oh yeah, Charlie Hebdo. Yeah.
Charlie Hebdo offices. When that got shut up and loads of people got killed, everyone's Facebook thing was, it was either I love or I am Charlie Hebdo or something like that. And then there's another terror attack, and it's the country's flag. And then there's another terror attack, and it's thoughts and prayer and all this stuff. And cool, but there's two massive thing wrongs here. Like, no one's going to assume that you're not thinking that terror attack was a bad thing. You don't have to change. You don't have to put a frame on it for us to then go, oh shit, you didn't put a frame up. You must support the terror or something. No one's going to think that. Oh shit, I think I have to get a proper sleep. I've lost. Say now.
The thing about that, the one that gets me is like, it's been checked in as safe. Now, I'm not against this idea at all, actually. In the small thing of the people around there, that I want to know these people are checked safe. If I knew there was a terror attack in London, then all my mates in London, like you're our mate in London, it'd be quite nice to know, hey, look, Rob's safe. But I know people that have gone, checked in safe. I'm like, you're about 4,000 miles away. like, don't abuse it. It's these things are like, this is what social media does. There's great things about social media, and I think one of the things that it's worth bringing up as a topic today is the pros and cons of social media in 2021. But like, I think there's so many benefits to it. I've met so many great friends online who I've never really met in person. Like, I think I met you briefly, but not really in person. And like, there's so many, but at the same time, there's stuff like this where everything will get abused. And every like, I was on Elliot Assoon's Simply Fit podcast, and we talk about trans women in sport. He goes, and he asked the question, does this happen the other way around? Do you get trans men becoming women and being women in, the other way around, becoming men and being men in sport? And I'm like, I bet you do. But you just don't hear it in the echo chambers of social media because it's not as interesting, because they're not likely to dominate.
Darling. Maybe it's true. Like, do you hear way more that trans women are women more than you hear anyone saying trans men are men? I can't think of any campaign or T-shirt or slogan or actress saying something that was pro trans men as pro as it is. No. I'll be interested to look up the sports stats on how many are doing that, actually. Yeah,
I mean, what is your, because obviously we had if you're looking at big news stories of 2021, and obviously there was Laurel Hubbard. I mean, what was your take on it? When me and Elliot spoke about it, it was it's a really murky territory, because I'm very much on the firm side of belief of this shouldn't be allowed, because I think it not only is potentially dangerous, especially in fighting sports. We found out in UFC a couple of years ago, but I think it also potentially is more sexist, because you've got all these women working really, 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 really hard to become into the Olympics. Not that these trans athletes are not working hard, but to work all this time to get to the Olympics and have no chance because someone's got an unfair advantage. And the person said, I'll hear the argument of, well, won't that strive for those women to achieve more? But if you're going to say that, then you're also going to say that why don't we just have anabolics in sports, because it's just going to make a natural sprinter run faster. It doesn't work that way. I mean, where do you sit on that? Because it's a difficult territory, because also as well, like, where do they sit if they're passionate about sport but they don't feel comfortable in their bodies?
It's same as you were, the way I see it, and some people will kick off of this because they think I'm equating the two. The way to do this is to set up a separate league, federation, whatever it is, where trans men and women compete. But obviously there's no such thing as a particular type of trans man or woman. Same way that there's no such thing as a particular classification of disabled. You look at Paralympics, you've got multiple different things. That's the way I see the fairest possible outcome for everyone. Some people will not like the fact that I've just equated trans similar to disabled, and I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying how you would run a sporting event, because you cannot, like, the argument falls flat of, won't this help women strive to achieve more? Show me a single sporting event. Keep it simple. Let's look at the Olympics. Show me a single female record that is beating or equal to the male record of the equivalent event. It doesn't exist, because you can get the fastest woman in the world, you will find a man that runs faster. You can get the strongest woman in the world, you will find a man who's stronger. Women who throw the furthest, you'll find a man who throws furthest, because it's biology. It can't be argued. This is all proven that trans women have a massive biological advantage. Regardless of what their testosterone is at that particular time they're competing, they have an advantage because of their years of being in a male body. It's proven, it can't be argued, right?
To throw a devil's advocate in there, what about the people that will then argue about Laurel Hubbard not doing well at the Olympics as a sign that?
And that's sport for you. You could say that particular, you could say, well, it doesn't matter because she was a shit weightlifter. Okay, at that event, she was a shit weightlifter. But what about all the local and national records that I believe she was breaking from my memory, from my distant memory? What about all those? What about when we take this out of the equation of Olympic weightlifting, where it's a solo sport, and we put it in an MMA cage? Different story. Different story. It only takes one punch to fuck someone up.
Oh, God, no. The analogy Elliot gave, which I thought was really good. It's like you in a way choose to be in a weight class, or you don't have a choice to be in a weight class, or you don't have a choice to be in a certain age bracket, but you accept that you're going to be in those because you either made the choice in the weight bracket category, or you just got older, and you accept that there are advantages of someone who may be 25 over someone who's 65. And it's in that same thing, if you're talking about weight categories, it's like saying, okay, let's take this, lightweight boxer and putting him in an MMA bout with Brock Lesnar. Like, the guy's getting, I don't care how good he is, the guy's getting murdered. And this is why you put people of the same weight in the same category. And this is something that I can't think of a better term than woke, that we add things in. Like, it's the equality argument, which has been, I think if there's any story of 2021, I think it's the equality argument.
100%. And this may not happen, but weightlifting is now one of the sports that may not feature in the Olympics anymore.
Why is that? Because I've seen the story that it's off, but no one's clear telling me why it's happened.
So I've not seen a clear definition of why that's in the shortlist, along with, I believe, boxing. I believe.
So you assume it's a safety issue.
Is it a safety issue, or is it related to what we just spoke about? Is it because these are the ones where there's more noise, competing, there's more danger that could happen with the boxing?
So I think it could allow.
But that's just my thought. Could it be related to that?
That's interesting, and it could be right. Either way. Like we've seen this in sport a lot with the research coming about CTE and the concussions, and it's another murky topic here because I think do we want our athletes to be as safe as possible? Of course we do. We don't want to encourage people to get head injuries, and that could really cause some issues. And I think it's good that this information is coming out, and how we can make sports safer is a great thing. But I think that there's a line that's getting very, very close now with where does choice come into this? In the sense of how far do you change a sport before the sport stops becoming a sport? And rugby is a great example here, where they've made a lot of changes to the rules with the intention of limiting concussions. And some of them good, like just shortening the engage of the scrum. I'm all for that. Stricter with high tackles. To a degree, I agree with that. But it's got such to the point now where if you come in low to tackle high and then somebody drops their head down to you, that could be a red card. It's like so many red cards in rugby. And I'm just like, if you're shorter, or what, like, do you clear out a breakdown anymore? Because if you're getting low and trying to drive up, there's always a concern that someone's also going to come in head going down. And like, where does it stop? And boxing, and like boxing in the Olympics is like, well, surely there's a risk you sign up for when you decide to become a boxer. You can't take punching to the head out of boxing.
Exactly. Yeah. That's it. Unless they want all the professionals to start wearing headgear, which is never going to fucking happen. And even then, when only free, it's if you.
How much safer does headgear make?
Say again?
How much safer does a set of headgear really make a difference?
Not really. I don't numbers obviously, but man, it doesn't. Like you'll still find amateurs and Olympic levels with concussion and things like that, and all sorts of issues, and later onset, not arthritis, Alzheimer's and stuff like that. You know, same thing.
And that's the thing. We're in the world now where it's a weird thing because you want to make people safer, but at the same time, risk is a part of life, and it seems like we don't want anyone to take any sort of risk to what they do or what they say. Like going into that for yourself, I mean, like obviously we went into that big thing about sport, but if there's any stories of 2021 that you think worth highlighting, news, fitness, whatever, what stood out to you in terms of this year?
Well, it was a year that most personal trainers finally figured out how to use Canva and took that subscription to the max.
I'm one of them.
Everyone's good. I don't know, because it all just kept getting dominated by mate. Okay, so this is the biggest thing I would say, that the fitness industry forgot what it's meant to be fucking doing. Like, we had a global pandemic where the majority of people that suffered and died had comorbidities based on obesity, heart disease, all things that are preventable. And the fitness industry spent most of its time arguing whether someone should get vaccinated or not, whether they should be having masks or not, being much more polite on someone's dietary choices when Krispy Kreme are offering free donuts for your vaccination card and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And personal trainers going, well, if you can't educate your clients how to, work a donut into their fucking diet, it's nothing to do with working a donut into their diet, right? It's to do with who's the louder voice here? Krispy Kreme, Budweiser, all these companies that are able to offer these things and entice people into something. We should be taking notes on that. We should be taking marketing notes on that. But instead, we're not arguing amongst ourselves whether a client can eat a donut or not. Of course, a client can eat a fucking donut. Of course, a fan. That was not the fucking issue. It was to do with this global pandemic that is killing people who most of those dead had ways to potentially prevent that by losing weight, by sorting out their eating, by sorting out their stress, sorting out their sleep issues, things like that. By living a healthier lifestyle, they were much, much less likely to suffer from this. But instead of us doubling down and putting that as a message across, we just argued amongst ourselves and we fucked up. It's why the obesity numbers are still rising,
Yeah, I mean, how much of this do you think potentially could be not solved, but helped by a restructuring? Oh, there's a lot of things you can do to the political system in the UK, but restructuring of the political system in the UK where they generally appointed people based off experience and knowledge as opposed to my friends at Eton. Because like we had Matt Hancock for most of last year and into this year. Like I don't know and don't give a fuck who the current guy is because they're all as useless as each other. But where he's a health secretary with no knowledge of health. And the problem with the fitness industry, and I think maybe that we fall too much into that comfort zone of that we don't have a say, because it's the people that people are going to listen to are reality TV stars and government's advice, where they're just taxing sugar, which is such a blatant, obvious thing. It's like, well, let's line our pockets rather than educating people on better food choices or making, healthier food cheaper. They're just saying, well, what we'll do is we'll tax a Snickers bar and line an extra 40p in our pocket. Like, are you really trying to help here? Is that really what you're trying to do? Because if you were, there's better ways of doing it than things that don't line your own profits.
I remember Bojo came out with a video middle of the year where he was on his cell phone, he's walking upstairs and he's going, I suffered with COVID because I was too fat. So what I did was I cut out cheese. I didn't have any chocolate at night. I started being more active and things like that. And then he goes completely off the fucking rails and starts talking about, here's how we're going to help you do the same. We're going to create an app and things like that. And no apps materialized anyway. And we're putting, like our target was to help like 18,000 people or something like that. Whereas the actual obese numbers were like 400,000. I'm probably way, way lower on both of those numbers than what they were targeting. They was probably targeting 400,000. It was up in the millions. It was a while ago now, but again, like you look at Bojo, looks exactly the fucking same, looks the exact same frame. I don't have any data on his weight or anything like that. I can only go from what I see on TV. Looks exactly the fucking same. So while we're in a global pandemic where there is a man who is obese and is not looking after himself and does not look like the picture of health, like most politicians, and 2 years or a year later down the line, he looks exactly the same, kind of fucked up there. And that's how I see the general public as well. Like the articles were coming out pretty quickly that people who were suffering most from this were those who were vitamin D, magnesium deficient, those who were obese, those who had comorbidities, lifestyle factors like heart disease, things like that. I don't think this is the case anymore, but I think even one point they were talking about diabetes, people suffering more. I don't know, like, don't quote me on that. That might have been retracted. But if
it would make sense. Because if you think that all of these things are stress-related, chronic stress-related illnesses, from one way or another, right? And chronic stress is going to infect your immune system in the same way that vitamin D will boost your immune system. So anyone with, they will say, immunocompromised, whether it's the direct disease that's making them immunocompromised or the lifestyle that's led them to be in that disease state, like diabetic in the first place, they're going to be at a disadvantage when it comes to surviving.
You've got like this should, if you're choosing my words carefully, if you're the exact same frame, size, weight, body fat percentage, activity level that you were this time last year, and you're worrying about whether you should be wearing a mask or a vaccination or what unvaccinated people should do, that's your top priority, you're a fucking moron. You're a fucking moron. People have all night and all morning, I don't know why, because I don't care, all morning have been sending me this clip of Tony Blair on TV last night.
Okay.
Saying that if your Omicron's so contagious that if you're still unvaccinated, you're not just immoral, you're an idiot. And people are sending me, I don't know why they're sending me it. I don't care what a war criminal has to say. I really don't. So, and I'm not a fucking expert on COVID either.
No, yeah.
Plus, most of the people who are sending me it don't know my vaccination status either. So I don't know, whether you're assuming something or what, I don't know what's going on. But
they clearly haven't looked at your Facebook profile picture, Rob.
Exactly, I didn't update my frame. Sorry, it might sound ambiguous because I didn't show my booster card with my fucking personal numbers on it either. Morons. But he's saying if you're still unvaccinated, you're not just immoral, you're an idiot. I say the same thing with people that have not looked after their health over this last fucking year. You've continued sitting on the couch and not signed up to a gym membership, or even just got outside, started getting more sun, started changing the ways you're eating, focusing on your sleep, then that's kind of moronic. Kind of fucking moronic.
I would argue it potentially we're actually making things worse. Now we're looking short term over long term, but like and probably, touch wood, we will never live through this. But whenever the next pandemic is after this COVID thing dies down, we're creating a world where we've created media panic and stress. We're creating much more stress, much more lonely environment that's going to affect our immune response and lower it. We've now told people to stay indoors for pretty much the entirety of 2 years, wash their hands several times a day, not interact with people. And like, how do kids build up a strong immune system? They get around, they eat things in the dirt, and they build up an immune system. And now we're creating this world where, from a mental standpoint, we're weakening our immune system. From a physical standpoint, we're not prepared for the world outside. And people might say that this, it doesn't make that much of a difference, and et cetera, et cetera. But I'll look at the example of me and my partner, right? And her mum won't watch this, so if she does, she probably will rant at me anyway. So her mum was is much more cautious with her. Like, if food's 4 days from its sell date, it's not eaten. My mum and dad smells fine, eat it, right? And there's a difference in the amount that I get sick compared to the amount Ellie gets sick. Sure. And it's just through exposure. And we're creating a world now where people are more likely, I think, to get ill, to the point where when this COVID thing dies down, the rate of the normal flu should go through the roof. And will that be worse? And then we're back in the cycle again.
Exactly. And then just like all that stuff you said, of people staying indoors and scared to go out an immune system, stress and all that. And then suddenly what pops up, I don't want to go too conspiratorial, but what pops up at the right time is Mark Zuckerberg's metaverse. So you won't have to go outside. You can stay inside and stick your Oculus fucking thing on. And
I'm going to stop you right there, because you're saying you don't want to go too conspiracy theory. This is not the podcast for that. So we are 2 years into 2 weeks flatten the curve. And I know personally that I've gone through a roller coaster of up and down feelings towards how, I don't want to say genuine, because I want to make it seem like I'm a COVID denier, but like of how severe an overreaction this is. From now, as the longer you're in this, the more you speak to people who've had real problems, that you go, oh, okay, maybe I'm underreacting, to other things where you go, oh, this is a massive overreaction. Yeah. So after 2 years of this now, and looking back over the last year, one, how's your feelings towards COVID and the measures that are being taken? And do you think it's actually got better this year? Because obviously we've got out more, people can travel, people can do stuff, but has it really gotten better in your view?
No, it hasn't got better at all. It's they dangled little carrots and given us the illusion that things are better, because they've gone, oh, here's your freedom back, which we're never there to take anyway. I wholeheartedly believe COVID as a virus is real, and it will do what a virus does: replicate, become more infectious but less severe, because it needs to survive. And if it kills all the hosts, it can't survive, much like a xenomorph. And it will just keep again and again until it comes out your chest. Whether it will, so I'm in two minds. Right? I haven't decided which is which. I know what I believe, but I haven't decided which of these is the likely scenario. Is this a power grab because they've seen an opportunity to force restrictions on us and vaccinations and take our freedoms away and things like this? Or are they panicking because they know this was made in a lab, and they know that they actually know nothing about how bad this could be, because it's not your normal type of virus because it was made in a lab? I'm not sold either way yet, but I 100% believe in the lab leak theory. It will come out in years. That, yeah, they fucked up here.
I think it almost did. Like the logic of the bat thing, and especially with the lab happened to be in Wuhan. I think this is definitely a fuck up that's getting tied under. I don't know whether it's something that has been. I think it's a mixture of everything. I think there's an element of they don't know what it's like. They are panicking. They've now had to deal with this, and we're showing that how inept a lot of governments around the world are. But I don't think this is necessarily. I don't believe in the Illuminati that this was an agenda in order to state world control. But I do think that, like a greedy businessman trying to exploit his workforce and sees an opportunity, I think here we've got something that goes, well, look at the banning protests in London, right? That's something they probably wanted to do anyway, but we'll hide that into a COVID reform to allow people to go and it's okay. We'll bring it back. And they're never intending to bring it back because they didn't want people speaking up against them in the first place. It's like lots of people going, well, this is terrible, but we can use this to make our lives easier. I think that's very prevalent.
100%. I mean, that protest, they have literally been trying that for years. There used to be guys, I think it was multiple different issues they were protesting, but there used to be guys camped out on Parliament Square for most of the 90s and early 2000s before they then went, no, we don't want this anymore, we'll get rid of you. Yeah. And people off, and then people forget, and then another protest comes along and they're like, yeah, we'll let you have a protest. And it's goes around that circle. But they've always been trying to stop this because why would they want that? They think they know what's best anyway because they've been voted in. Why would they then listen to people protesting? Which is why I do and I don't agree with protesting. I think it's a flawed method, but I don't know. What's
the alternative?
Maybe not. What is the alternative? What is alternative? Grassroots activism, actually getting involved in politics. I don't know. I actually don't know the answer to that. So,
I always feel like politics, it feels like, I don't want to say us versus them, but it feels like a boys' club. It's to a point now where Labour and Conservative is very little difference.
Yeah.
And yeah. I feel that it's a bunch of very privately educated guys that have sort of done a reality with the world. And there's the reason why, like, I'll say on here, it's like picking between gonorrhea and syphilis, but I don't mind Keir Starmer. And the reason why I don't mind our current Labour leader is when he was saying that he had a speech in the House of Parliament where saying that it's all right for us to impose these restrictions with our salaries and our big houses that have gardens in London. But how was this going to be like for a mother of three living in a council estate? And I was like, that finally someone had, like, even if he's saying, I don't understand, at least it's someone that's admitting, I don't understand what it's like to be someone who's actually voting for us, rather than Boris Johnson trying to make it out that he does, and it comes across as the fakest thing I've ever heard in his life. And this is why Nigel Farage did well. Like, how does a racist scumbag get that much? And like some of the stuff he said around COVID, I find it hard to dislike the guy. Then I remember he's an absolute racist, and it's very easy. But like, all this shows Trump getting in. You know, and all this, it just shows of a world that's looking for a change.
Yeah.
But it's so institutionalized that I don't think it ever will.
Yeah. And all we do, and as we look for more and more of this change, we get more and more divided. And as we get more and more divided, we get more fearful. And as we become more fearful, we become more dumb and susceptible to all this stuff. And it just creates this horrible, horrific. And like I say, the things like the metaverse come along where it's like, don't worry about all that. Don't worry about the fact that you're struggling financially and you can't leave your house. Put your headset on and you could be on that fucking yacht that you dream about having and mix VR porn in with that as well. It doesn't matter that your wife hasn't blown you in fucking 10 years. Look at this hot model who technically doesn't exist, but is right in front of you, telling you the things you want to hear. You get the fleshlight attachment. I'm really over for this. You get the fleshlight attachment. And then the problem is you take that headset off and you're like, shit, I'm in my studio flat. Which I can't fucking leave. And it's just a fucking shithole. Why would you not then want to just, you know what, fuck it? Remember, people talk about like the Matrix and things like that to do with this. If you remember Inception, they walk into a room in Inception and there's guys hooked up to the dream that stay there all the fucking time. And the guy says it's their own lives are so miserable they just want to escape. That's coming, man.
I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. And it's quite scary. It's the same thing I thought with what was Elon Musk thing? Neuralink. And like and all of these things are quite masked up well by very, very good marketers. Now I don't think Elon Musk is trying to have brain control. I don't think Bill Gates is looking at world domination. But like they're very good at packaging the positives in things. Like Neuralink could be the thing that ends Alzheimer's. It could be the thing that allows our consciousness to sort of live forever, although I'm not entirely sure how that works. But at the same time, is just like COVID in general, right? Is the cure worth the repercussions of it? Like everything comes with a drawback, and those things like but I suppose people have been saying that for years, right? People probably said that with the mobile phone and the iPhone.
Yeah,
and like they become some of the most useful things ever.
They were useful, weren't they? We was all going to get cancer within 3 years of having mobile phones.
Have you got 5G yet though? Because that's going to frazzle our brains and give us COVID, right?
This will give away to some part of my vaccinated status, but I've definitely not got 5G. There's no 5G.
Yeah.
No.
So like going into like other points of the year, I think to sort of wrap up the COVID side of this, I don't know. There isn't a summary, is it? Like, how long do you think this will go on for?
Mate, much longer. The next thing will be the next variant, which will be, probably even less severe and yet more infectious still. And mate, there's more coming. Now that they've dabbled with these vax passports, that will turn into a thing. Whether it is as oppressive as some people think or not, I don't know.
What's your thoughts on the vaccine passport?
No,
I hate it.
Based on medical status, I don't believe anyone should be inflicting upon your travel rights whatsoever. I don't think they should. Even as effective and important as I believe the vaccines are, I don't think it can be government mandated either. I very much believe in limited government.
Yeah.
And some of the arguments that I've had previously, we're going way back now, is obviously it then comes into, I say, well, government shouldn't be able to limit your travel or things like that. And then the argument that then people bring up from that is, well, what about asylum seekers, refugees? Do you think they shouldn't? And it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. There's a big difference between deciding to leave your country, going into another one in a legal or a route where you're going to be taking something from that country. It is a completely different kettle of fish to, I'm just going on holiday. That's all, bro. Just going on holiday. Or moving to another country, paying into the economy and things like that. The two aren't the same. But that's the first argument people come up with. But I don't believe government should be limiting travel.
No. I also think with it's one of those things where it's like a businessman not believing in their own product. If the vaccine is as beneficial as everyone has been saying, right? The vaccine truly makes you safe. Then now that should allow people who don't want the vaccine to have a choice, because the people they're going to be hurting are themselves. And the people who get vaccinated are now going to be in a position where it doesn't really matter, supposedly. So, I'm not a medical expert, I'm not a COVID expert. Some people will say that the vaccine may die for a certain amount of times. We've obviously got taught that these are new vaccines, so we're still learning. But if we're going to push people to get the experimental vaccine, we must be pretty confident that it works. Now, if it works, then surely now it's a matter of choice. And I think that's something it's a very grey area where you stop people leaving their home. Yeah,
and that's it. Like I say about travel to other countries, that's a minor issue. But the fact that you might not be able to go to your normal Sainsbury's around the corner because they're going to change. And again, I believe private business's choice. If some businesses want to use a passport scheme, cool. If some don't, cool. And you go to whichever one suits your position best,
Yeah.
But I don't believe that should be dictated by a higher power at all. Especially, did you see what the White House did? This is like, let me get up super quick. So I would say, as like most people, I don't quite understand the vaccine. I don't understand how it works because it is not my area of expertise in the slightest, right? But I think if you want to get as many people vaccinated as you can, you try and find it. I've got it. You educate people, This is the benefits of doing so. This is how it's going to help. This is what's actually going on in your body. Like, educate, make people aware.
Real data rather than this cherry-pick data that every government is coming out with. Every time that you see a doctor or somebody else that goes, this isn't actually entirely true. Everybody that reads both of those stories just loses a little bit of respect for the government. And yes, there's always two sides to every story, but there's so many governments now that are putting data out there, or even not even backing their decisions by data at all, where it's like, well, why am I doing these rules? I know that it's not effective. I know that there is no benefit to it. So why are you imposing my issues and my freedom on something that is unfounded?
Yeah. Main thing for me is that my parents, who are elderly and one is in a vulnerable category, were vaccinated. That's the main thing. Me being vaccinated or not does not affect them because they're vaccinated. Now, if that vaccine is less effective and it's not going to help them, then make a better fucking vaccine. Don't force me to get vaccinated with the ineffective vaccine that is not going to help them either. This will be good to link it back into fitness, right? The White House statement. We are intent on not letting Omicron disrupt work and school. For the vaccinated, you've done the right thing and we will get through this. For the unvaccinated, you're looking at a winter of severe illness and death for yourselves, your families, and the hospitals you may soon overwhelm. That is a White House, White House statement, right?
Oh my God.
That doesn't work. You sit down with a client and say, this is how a healthy lifestyle is going to benefit you. You're going to have more energy, sex drive is going to go through the roof, you're going to look better, your confidence is going to go, therefore your sleep's going to be better, therefore your mood's going to be better, your choice. This is helping you in so many different ways. You sit down with an overweight client and say, look, you are fat, you are going to develop type 2 diabetes, you've probably already got some sort of heart problem, blood pressure's through the roof, you're going to die early, which is going to upset your family, you're going to be a burden on the NHS because they're going to have to look after you, and that doesn't fucking work. That does not work. A little bit of fear driven, yeah, can add something to the mix. But you educate and you inspire. You don't just come at people with, you've done the wrong thing, thank you later. Doesn't work.
It really does make you wonder, like, these should be the most efficient and effective hiring process in the world, to have these people that run countries that seem to know less about human psychology, know less about health, know less about science than so many people in my network do. I'm like, my brain, I have no words for things like that.
It's crazy, isn't it? It's fucking crazy.
Fuck me. So, like, going off.
It's safe in the metaverse. People are friendly in the metaverse.
So going into like a little bit of attendance, this is something that I wanted to speak about. That was, I think, was another big topic of discussion this year, and I think it's really, really important. It's not really on the fitness topic, but I think it's important, especially as we both deal with men, and we sort of alluded to it in our Bond debate, although that was way more lighthearted. Like, what's your stance on the wokeness of 2021? It started with Mr. Potato Head not being able to be a Mr. anymore, right? And it ended with the death of James Bond.
Yeah.
Now, it's like, to me, I can't remember who said this phrase, but it really resonates with me, is true equality means you bring more chairs to the table. You do not kick the legs out from the chairs that are already there. Look, what's your take on how the media's been this year? And what do you think the impact of these decisions will have on the mental health of men in 5, 10, 15 years?
We have less positive, strong male role models than ever. Think back to when we were kids. Every single week on TV, you had Hulk Hogan doing something cool, you had some other wrestler, you had Arnie in the fucking movies, you had Rocky, inspirational male stories, and even something as simple as, okay, take away typical muscle man, even something as simple as David Hasselhoff or running down the beach. Show me now what kids, and even in the world of music as well, apart from loads of them being on drugs, but show me now who kids have got to look up to directly that inspires them with traditional masculine and male traits. I can't think of anyone.
So to like throw in sort of two devil's advocates there, the thing we're going to get back about this is, one, that in the early 90s, 80s, wherever, we're looking at the amount of male role models was massive. And they're going to say, well, that's because that's not the problem. The fact that there is so many male role models and no female role models.
Yeah.
That's devil's advocate number one. The other, like the other devil's advocate, I've lost my train of thought. It's the cider. This, I told you, my tolerance has gone down. So I'll think of it. But tell me about that devil's advocate first, that the problem was there was too many male role models in the first place. Yeah,
but then what was the issue there? What was actually causing the issue? By us having these masculine role models, what did it strive us to, or it helped us to strive to be, well, it certainly started making me train, to be physically better. It showed me how to deal with an altercation, whether that was talking my way out of it or jumping off a steel ladder. It taught me how to. It kind of taught you what the right thing to do was. Like if someone's drowning in the fucking sea, Hasselhoff's on it, right? Grabs his thing and he's going, albeit in slow motion. He's on it. He's not going, we'll let the women have a go. Go on, off you go. I'll stay back and do the admin for once. It's like there's a job that needs to be done. Let's go fucking do it. That's some of the biggest things I've taken away from my childhood heroes. It's a job that needs to be done. Might not always do it the right way. It might not be the most efficient way, but there's a job that needs to be done, and it's all about getting it done. Now it's let's decide who's this job going to upset if we complete it. Is everyone involved? Is everyone equally involved? Have we all got our equal length of rope that we're pulling matey out of the sea with? Geezer's drowned. Like too late.
What about the people that say that someone like James Bond, or let's say you said jumping off steel ladders, like you mentioned, obviously the world of pro wrestling, which is the reason why I started training, is because I wanted to be like Triple H.
Yeah.
Why must people argue that these people aren't good role models anyway? Like using Bond as a prime example of being a womanizer, being violent, being arrogant. What's the art? What will you say about people that these aren't good role models? We need better role models for men.
Yeah. The reason they were the better role models back then, and the reason now we have less of those role models now is worse seen, because look at the stats of middle-aged females going on to antidepressants, including young females as well, the antidepressant use, and this increase of this incel culture, guys shying away from dealing with women because they don't know how to deal with women anymore. Women are looking for that traditional male. They are not looking for a guy that, and I really don't want to offend any trans, but they're not looking for a guy that wakes up one morning and goes, you know what, I think I want to wear a dress today. No, they're looking for a guy that knows what he's doing in the bedroom, that has drive, purpose, that can provide and protect, but doesn't dominate, is not domineering.
Yes, well said.
He's not going to stop them earning their own wage. Wants to create maybe a traditional family. There's all these things that are missing from our society now. And dare I say it, the further we strive away from the prevalence of religion in our society, the worse it's getting as well. And I'm not saying everyone should therefore be religious and everyone should go to church, but the more we're straying away from traditional values, the more antidepressant use is going up, the more suicide's going up, the more obesity is going up. I believe it's all correlated.
That's a really interesting point. I mean, are you a religious man yourself? Because I am not. I'm very much an atheist. But
brought up Christian. I used to go to church every single week with my mum. I then stopped going to church around about 16 because all my favourite rock stars were telling me that Satan was the way. So it was all right. He didn't do much for me. As of recent years, I think in more of that capacity than I do. I'm certainly not going to church again. I've got my Bible, but I haven't started reading it again. Like in the last couple of months, reordered one.
Oh, wow, okay.
You read like people talk about self-help books and Jordan Peterson, obviously in Stoicism and things like that. Read Proverbs, man. Read Proverbs. Totally. Jesus Christ, that is a self-help book right there. The rest of it, it's up to you whether you choose to believe it real or not. That's not the point. There's stories and lessons in there that you can learn from. Same way you can learn from Harry Potter, from Pinocchio. There's things in there you can learn. You listen to Jordan Peterson talking about Lion King, you're like, I thought it was just a cartoon. Man, there's lessons in there because there's lessons everywhere.
It's Hamlet, right? And like some of the best lessons are in Shakespeare. And, because Hamlet was Macbeth. What's the Lion King based on? It's Hamlet, right?
I want to say Hamlet.
I think it's Hamlet. Yeah. And like sort of going into this, obviously there's like the topic of the place that men have in society, I think has been one of the biggest topics in 2021. Rightly and wrongly. But obviously midway through this year, we had the horrendous news of the issue with Sarah Everard, and which is a disgraceful abuse of power. But obviously that caught the social media and the news bandwagon. And rightly so. But the issue obviously that came out with that was the not all men conversation. Now, like, I in a way have strong views about this, and it was it creates a massive amount of divide between certain men and certain women, and a lot of hatred online. Yeah. Before I give you my thoughts on this, where do you stand on what was probably the biggest news story of the summer, certainly in the UK?
100% that was huge. That was in the headlines for 10 weeks.
Terrible tragedy.
Then we get lots and lots of headlines. Then just became more COVID related. Who's breaking rules? Who's not breaking rules? Some protests were featured. Some protests weren't featured. That's all I kind of remember, because I try and stay away from news as much as I possibly can.
Yeah.
People say, well, how do you know what's going on? Why do I need to know what's going on? I've got my own life that I can direct what's going through my business and my relationships. What else do I need to know? What else do I need to know? I don't need to know anything. Really, when you think about it.
Yeah. That's a good message, though. I felt so much happier the more I move away from the news. I hear big stories, but I don't get caught up in the weeds.
It's all opinion pieces now. It's all opinion pieces. Like that poor girl getting murdered, horrific, right? But that being shared as mainstream news, how does that enrich anyone's life? It doesn't. If you weren't living in Clapham at the time, why does that affect you? It doesn't affect you. Yes, it highlights that lots of these things are going on, but I don't know of a long list of females that are getting murdered by rogue nutjob coppers, really. You know, how does it actually affect you? But the newspaper puts it on the front page. You feel a certain way, you are more likely to act a certain way and think a certain way, and therefore you're likely to buy a certain way as well, which is why the newspaper still exists. Shareholders of advertising companies and things like that. But it's okay. So then it happens. Okay, they find the guy. Fantastic. Let's get the evidence, find him guilty, and lock him away for life. Yeah. Do you need to then be seeing this person's opinion on TV? This person's opinion on TV, this girl getting arrested, this happening, like that affects you even fucking less. Even, but that becomes the front page news. You become, oh my God, there's more injustices going on, and I can't see how I can't see the benefit to getting trapped in this cycle, because then your life becomes nothing but misery, fear, and distraction, and then people wonder why they're not where they want to be.
I think this highlighted to me the echo chambers of social media this year, where people who react emotionally online, and I get why people react emotionally online, right? Like every woman has the right to be safe, and I did a video about this on my social media profile, like what we can all do, men, women, everybody, to make sure women feel safe. But the people who react emotionally tend to, certainly in today's age of social media, especially what creates traction and gets picked up by the algorithms, is you have to go so far in one direction to find a middle ground. And this is where the not all men hashtag came about. And I think this hurt women's case for support in this thing. And this will probably get backlash, and women will say, well, no, men should do more. And maybe we should. But the argument I have is that if the message was, hey, we know most of you listening to this aren't going to be raping, drugging, attacking, being violent to women, but we need your support. We need you on our side to make sure that the minority of men that are horrendous stop, whether it's a wolf whistle or something much more severe. I think much men would have stood up and been like, yeah, I totally agree. Let's fight this together. But it became this anger against everybody. Every person that had a set of testicles was the problem here. And I reckon there were so many men over the course of summer that wanted to say something, that wanted to stand up, that wanted to help, that were terrified of doing so because if he said a wrong word, they got the head bitten off. Now, I put up a post about women being safe on my social media, and I had a few people share it, but I didn't get many messages, but I got the first message I got was somebody saying, because I'm on a business course with somebody who maybe has a checkered past for not being the best behaved. And he's gone through therapy, and I'm sure he's very different. And I don't want to know that part of his life.
Yeah.
And I posted a screenshot going, hey, this is a really valuable hour, great, helpful, tag the person. And I got like, you're a hypocrite for tagging that person. I got abused. I'm just like, this is why more men don't help out. Like I don't know what this boy's doing now. I'm making my opinions heard, and I'm attacked for it. And in the same way that I think that a lot of the issues we have with this, that topic I have for this, is that you're not encouraging people to be in. It's very similar to that White House thing. It's like if you fight things with anger, the more that people don't want to make the voice heard because they know it's going to be a lot of effort.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it's, again, it comes back to, so many people will say these traditional male role models are problematic and we need less than that and less than that and less of that. And then it comes down to the Me Too movement and Not All Men, etc., or whichever one we just mentioned, asking for men's help. This is the reason why this is happening. These guys that are attacking and are leering at women and wolf whistling and are just low value men are lacking in these masculine traits. That's what it is. They're lacking in these traits. I did a video on that on my social media. Some people loved it, some people hated it, but I got a lot of my female audience on there agreeing with me. And I'm not saying every female would, but I got a lot agreeing with me. If we don't embody these traits and encourage these traits, or even teach how to operate with these traits socially, then if we just go, no, it's wrong, you can't do that, you can't be that type of man, then people end up confused and they have no idea how to actually act in society, in which case base urges take over, which are mainly sexual in nature, and you end up with this crazy stuff going on.
How do we sort this?
We understand that there are certain, I need to choose words very carefully. We can't fight, and it's damaging to try and change biology. Socially, that's an entirely different thing. There will be some people that want to move in a certain circle, some people that want to move in another different circle. You're never going to find an era in time where everyone thought and agreed the same thing. And that's what makes us human.
Makes it interesting as well.
All brought up by, yes, your biological nature, what you've inherited, the social circles you were in your youth, the whether you were poverty stricken or not, all these things, what you ate, all these things come down to how much sun and activity you had as a kid. That shapes you later down the line, how much you're continuing that as an adult. And then you're going to repeat that with your kids because that's all you knew. But yet, 20 minutes down the road in another town, they do things differently then. Who's to say which is the right way to do it? We'll never find one train of thought in society. Never going to happen. And the quicker we accept that, the more we can start having conversations and build these bridges. Okay, so how can these societies work together? Same with politics. You've got right and you've got left. How can the two actually meet in the middle and create something good for everyone?
Yeah,
they're not fighting, saying always better, and ignoring the big elephants in the room of how they can work together.
Exactly. That ties us back into the movie thing, right? It's that bringing other chairs to the table. Like there was a thing that Tom Holland said after the latest Spider-Man movie. He was saying that I think he wants to see a world where there's I'm going to butcher this quote, but wants to see a world where there is, a Spider Girl and Spider-Man of color, and you've got the Miles Morales thing, and I think Marvel has done very well in opening up these doors for people. But then I swiped and I've read the end of this quote. And he goes, this is why I don't want to see the end of Spider-Man, but I think it may be time to say goodbye to Spider-Man. And my argument is, why, in having a Spider-Man of color or female, means we have to get rid of the male one? Why can't they both be there? Why does equality mean the man role has to disappear? Why can't we have both?
Yeah.
That's equality.
It's getting rid of stuff that you don't need to get rid of because you are viewing it as problematic and the other thing hasn't come through. Well, look at history. Make a Supergirl movie. Make a Spider-Girl movie. The audience is going to tell you what it wants. And don't be surprised if it doesn't want what you're giving them. Look at fucking Ghostbusters. You made an all-female Ghostbusters cast and it flopped because no one wanted to see that. People wanted to see the old. They didn't even want a new male Ghostbusters. They wanted the old Ghostbusters.
If you look at that, so like Wonder Woman, Black Widow, and the movies that were built around strong female protagonists that did very well because you have a unique strong female protagonist, rather than going, we'll give you the male thing, but with a female, which I think insults everybody. Yeah.
And you can say these things maybe they don't exist in as much as they do for males, but you can't say, you see the argument of they're there are no strong female protagonists. It's always a supporting role or things like that. You've got one of the strongest, most natural and inspiring female leads ever from one of the most classic sci-fi, horror, whatever genre you want to stick it in the form of Ripley from Alien.
How is Alien become such a theme of this podcast?
This is one of the greatest movies ever made. And she was a normal female. She was not Wonder Woman. She didn't have special powers. She wasn't Jack or anything like that. She was just a normal female that did the job that needed to be done. And that's it. That's an inspiring role right there. Like this is the great thing about the superheroes is they're inspiring, but they're all flawed at the same time. Superman's flawed, Batman's flawed, Spider-Man massively flawed, and that's what makes them more inspiring. If there were no flaws, we would get bored of them and we wouldn't be inspired by them anymore. We would end up despising them and hating them.
Yeah.
So that's what we've got to do with females. Give them a strong lead, give them a strong role, but it's got to be flawed at the same time. They've got to have limitations at the same time. But they won't do that. They will just go, right, here's your female and she's indestructible and you can't. That's why Captain Marvel sucked. Okay,
Captain Scarlet as well. Do you remember the Jerry Anderson puppets, Captain Scarlet? So you had Captain Scarlet and you had Captain Black, right? They're both indestructible. So if they're both indestructible, what's the point of them fighting? Just have a cup of tea and a chat.
Yeah, exactly.
So like, moving away from this, one of the things you listed out in kind of topics was the Matrix theory. So I want to hear what you're taking this, because I don't necessarily, unless you're just talking about the film, what it is you're actually referring to when talking about the Matrix.
It's both theories about the Matrix film, which I'm hopefully going to catch tomorrow.
I didn't realize it was out.
Yeah, man. Obviously, I don't know about your side. That crept out. I didn't think it was coming out till New Year, but it's already.
Spider-Man took the headlines, right? Have you seen that?
When you go on the cinema websites, it's still Spider-Man top and way more than the Matrix.
Have you seen it?
Because the Matrix could end up just being like not a reboot, but like a remake of the first one, where you're like, this is just the same thing, and it weren't all that, like they did with Star Wars and other movies, you know. But it could be fun. I don't know. But I'm going to give it a chance because it's the Matrix.
100%.
Kind of cool, so I want to watch it. But in terms of the Matrix theory, the idea that we may already be living in a simulation of some sort. It's not necessarily part of an apocalyptic scene and robots are running the thing. It's scientists are actually looking into the possibility of, are we living in a simulation?
Is that true?
Oh, mate, they've been doing it for decades.
But like, what makes you bring it up now?
Oh, mate, this is a constant daily process for me. I think about this every single day. I'm not even exaggerating. I joke. I say someone will say something. My automatic comeback is the Matrix just glitched hard there. I fully believe. I really
hope you're right. I remember when I was on this podcast with Jordan Shallow, and something made me think about the Matrix theory. And he was like, because I can't believe I'm saying this because it makes me feel like the dumbest man in the world. Me and Jordan Shallow were the same age. Doesn't that suck?
No fucking way.
Yeah.
I would not have guessed that.
Yeah. So you talk about the success curve. But he was like talking about being just over being 30. We're both 31. And talking about being 30. And it's like, this is just how 30 is. And I'm sure if you spoke to people who are 30 in 1924 or 25, they have the same, different circumstances, but the same things. And I thought, ooh, maybe it is. Because if it's a computer program, it is the same.
Yeah.
The things around and the technology is different, but it's the same 30.
Yeah, exactly. That's the only thing that's changed every single time. Okay, so next year I'm 40. What was the difference when my old man was 40? I don't know, but I'm sure I'm about to be plugged into the same server. This is your 40 server. Here you go. And everyone's just got a different scenario, whether they've got kids or where they're living or whatever. Same thing.
I really want this to be true.
I do and I don't. I don't think it's ever something we truly break. If it is a simulation, it's not going to be like Neo where we get pulled out and we take the pill and that's it. And blah, blah, blah. It can't be because it's a simulation. Why would they then want us to be able to leave it? I don't see why they give us that option.
So you think it'd be like an NPC?
It would be like pure computer code. There's no pulling you out of the system. Like I can't pull you out of the screen right now. You are pixels right now. And that's what we would be, pixels and code, really, with NPCs and things like that. But I believe that it's not just as simple as someone went, right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to create this thing and we're going to have hundreds of millions of people throughout history and that's it. There's same way if there is a multiverse as well, there's multiple versions of you, or technically infinite versions of you, doing infinite number of different things. So in one of those multiverses, that could be the one where you are a millionaire, you've got a 12-inch cock, you've got women hanging off it all day long, you're the most famous person on the planet, whatever the hell. Maybe you're even James Bond. And my argument is always, well, that exists in one of those multiverses. Why can't that be this one? And I believe that to be in simulation as well. The simulation needs to keep updating itself. Why can't this version, why can't you have some level of control in this one? Or are you just going to be the NPC?
Oh, that's such a good reference.
That's how I live my life, man. Literally, I'm not even joking. I think about the Matrix every single day.
That is so interesting. Like thinking of it like an update. And I think that's quite a good metaphor in the sense of like whatever's past is gone. If you're updated, because if you think about biology, we're constantly updating. Like my skeleton's different to the one I was born with. My skin, my hair, my nails, they're all completely, I'm a brand new person every few years. So why can't everything else be entirely different?
Exactly.
Oh, that's so interesting. I mean, like, where does God? How far does this go? Where does things like the meta come into this? Where we're like a simulation of a simulation of a simulation going into a simulation.
Simulation, exactly. That's when the rabbit hole goes deep. It goes fucking deep. It's just to some rabbit holes I don't dare stick my head down. Stay tuned for the next episode where me and Rob take LSD into a 12-hour long episode. Could you imagine? Rogan has spoke about this a lot. Like, is there then a point where you're in the simulation where you then realize you are, so you try to rebuild it yourself because you want to see how it all happened and where it all came from, and is that then the perpetual cycle for the rest of eternity, which is simulation building another simulation on top of itself? Where's the original one? Well, we don't know. Likewise, we don't quite know exactly where we came from. We don't know exactly how we were formed from an explosion however many billion years ago. I don't know. It's like I say, when in terms of how deep it could go, fuck me, bro. This would be a 12-hour one. This would be a 12-hour one.
Save that for some LSD or some mushrooms.
This is how deep it goes. There are people that believe the birds you hear chirping in the morning is the sound of the modem updating itself. That's how deep it fucking goes.
You don't hear any birds here in Hong Kong, mate. The toxicity's got them all.
More equality for birds in Hong Kong, please.
Yeah, exactly. They should have starring roles. That's, it should be a kite or a sparrow that's the next James Bond. So, talking about recharging, like we mentioned predictions for 2022. So I want to start off before we go into your specific prediction for 2022 about your life and where Fat Lane is going to go and like all these things. Tell me a little bit about where your predictions in terms of where the globe's going to go in 2022 with whether it's COVID stuff, like equality stuff, or anything. Where do you think it's going to be? If we did this again next year, where do you think the state of the world's going to be?
I see next year it getting worse. It getting worse and worse and worse. I do. I see people accepting more restrictions. I see people looking for more help from the government and taking less responsibility for their own life. I see more look at me rather than let's help each other out. It's I'm suffering more, I'm oppressed more, so I need more. And I want that taken away from someone else. I see next year going worse, really. But I also see an uprising of people who are willing to wait too, for want of a better word, better phrase, who are looking to break away from the matrix. Guys who are looking to create their own family, move somewhere on their own, limited government involvement, live their life happy, doing their thing, looking after themselves, and being more sovereign, being way more sovereign. That's the way I see an uprising in that. But I don't see enough people. I certainly don't ever see a society change into that way. People are too comfortable, and why would you take away someone's comfort?
I don't know. I think there's going to be. I think next year is going to be shown. There's going to be more divides like this year, in the same way, from the smallest thing to the biggest thing, from the Mr. Potato Head to the COVID rules.
Yeah.
And I in some ways this is very positive, in some ways it's a negative. Because I think in the positive side of things, I think we're getting to the point now where the unless it is completely fabricated, the effects of this virus are getting harder and harder to justify the rules. And I think more and more people are getting fed up. And I certainly think if we're looking at locally in the UK, I think this is going to be big repercussions of this Boris Johnson spat of the Christmas party. If that was on its own, they would have distracted it.
Yeah.
Distracted the food shelves. But then that business meeting came up with the cheese and wine. And I think there's going to be more and more people now that are just going to go, well, I'm not going to follow your rules.
Yeah.
Because you don't. So then we'll have those people, we'll have the people that are literally protesting more to get our freedoms back. We'll get the people arguing with them that are like, oh, well, how insensitive are you? But then we'll have this bigger, widening part of the middle where people are like, I'm not really in either camp, but I ain't following these rules.
Yeah.
And I think eventually that will put pressure onto some level of normality coming back. So I think we'll end up this year. I think we'll end next year a little bit like we've ended this year, where technically it's better in terms of more freedoms, but it's still very much a new normal that doesn't seem to be going back to the old normal.
Yeah, I can get that.
Yeah, which I don't know. I think it's an equally. I remember when this time of year was a really exciting time, where it's like New Year's resolutions, New Year, new me, and now it's like, where's the world going to be?
This week, London is a ghost town. Run up to Christmas is normally the busiest time of year you can find it outside of summer for tourists. And it's a ghost town. Is
that just because tourists aren't traveling and people in London are just trying to get out and seeing their families before anything kicks off?
There could be multiple reasons why. There could be multiple reasons. I really think the media's done its job this year and scared people into not leaving because they're like, well, I don't want to get Omicron before Christmas because then that means Christmas is cancelled for me and my family. So they're not. And that's it's a kind of a smart move as well. But it's crazy. It's weird how quiet it is out there when it's not this quiet this time.
Do you think it will kick up at New Year because the only thing they're going to miss out on is going back to work?
I think so. I hope so.
I hope so. Like, I'm so looking forward to New Year this year because I just want. It's a weird thing here, and like I don't know how many people that are gonna. I've got to be much more careful of what I say here because I don't want to get arrested. But there's a lot of people think that here that people are there's a consensus that expats are being pushed out, and I sort of believe that, and I wasn't entirely sure. I also think that people after SARS, they're quite scared and rightly so. And I think more people are concerned. And, I die inside when people literally touch lift buttons for tissues. And that's a very regular occurrence here. But it was a couple of weeks ago that Ellie went out on a Friday night on Peel Street, which is a big sort of expat area in Hong Kong. Bars, restaurants, generally was very busy. 2019 was the busiest street in Hong Kong, other than LKF. Both of them are pretty dead now. And it's because of the COVID restrictions. So there was, apparently, according to Elle, about 5-10 police officers almost for every 3-4 people.
Wow. Separating people, getting people's faces, filming people. Yeah. People that were masked on, groups of 2. And I was on Kowloon side, a more local area, at a place called Temple Street Market, get some street food. And it was rammed, like social distancing, what social distancing? Didn't have to scan your QR code to get in like we do here and everywhere else. And I'm like, I didn't see a police officer all night. I was like, what is the difference? Yeah. One is more of an expat area, one's more of a local area. Now, I'm not saying one way or the other, but it is quite damning that it's like, as control is handed over more, that it seems to be harder and harder for people that aren't local to the area to live with these restrictions.
I generally think that will continue. I didn't see me. I think if I go home next summer to visit, I will have to do a 3-week quarantine when I come back still.
Yeah.
And I don't think we'll have a local case from now until then. And that's like all I want is just sort of a like, okay, we may be going overboard, but this is why we're doing it. This is what we're aiming for. Here's an end in sight. Like, you know, I always compare it to fat loss clients. You're like, oh, I want to have a 6-pack. How heavy do I need to be? Lighter. How long does it take? Some time. Cool. How hard do I have to push? Vary. And that person's not going to stick to that diet. And it's the way I feel sort of mentally about this. But so we don't end on a sour note. What is your plans first off? What is your plans for Christmas, and what are your goals personally for you and the business for 2022?
So for Christmas, I have to go back to classic Christmas. As much as it's not going to be the Christmas I wanted myself over the last couple of years, due to 2 lockdowns and a divorce, I'm going to be with my parents. I'm going to be with my brother and his wife and his 2 little twins all of Christmas Day. There's going to be food, there's going to be presents, there's going to be Christmas films on TV. What can you say better than that? You know, that's exactly it. So that's what Christmas is going to be for me. In terms of Fat Loss Fastlane next year, I'm going to keep my handful of one-to-one clients. I don't want to do a ton of one-to-one, but I want to create a bigger community. So I want my online group, the immersion group, to grow. I'm going to put much more value in there for them. I want to try and arrange physical meetups where we hire out some sort of gym for a day and do some sort of live training thing. I want to expand the reach of my community by guesting on more podcasts. I may start my own little solo, like a little 10-minute type thing. I don't know if I've got the time, the energy, or the know-how yet to do like a guested one.
I'll help you with that.
Similar to yourself, YouTube. I want to look at YouTube. I want to move slightly away from Facebook. And that's it. Like I did my polarizing as it's been, which I was not expecting. I released my Christmas survival guide based on things that my clients asked for. So I'm like, you guys want it? Boom, I'm going to create it. And that's what I want to do more of, finding out what people actually want and creating it for them, rather than spending $3,000 on Canva courses across the course of the year, because this guy says I should use this font and another guy says I should use this font, and this is how you do a carousel, but this is how you do a carousel, and this is how you do a carousel. I don't give a fuck. I don't care anymore. You know, that's not helping people.
The trend now with carousels, I find, is they get those very heavy carousel Instagram accounts where I could not tell you what the person whose Instagram page, what he actually looks like, because he's just so heavily focused on carousels. And if you look at influencers on Instagram, people do really well on Instagram, like thousands and thousands of followers. If you're looking at it from a business standpoint rather than a content standpoint, none of them are doing them. They're wanky posy photos of them that draw attention. Now you want to throw in a carousel every now and again and make it look great, and if you want to invest in making it look great, all power to you. But if your carousels game has gotten so big that I don't know what you look like, you've gone too far.
Yeah. And it's because your particular audience want it. Some of my carousels do great, some of my carousels do not, which is why I don't exclusively make carousels. Some of my pictures with long form copy down the bottom do great, some don't, which is why I don't exclusively do that. Some of my shorter memes and things like that do great, some don't, which is why I'm not exclusively doing that either.
Yeah.
But you look at your audience, what's working with them and what they want, and kind of double down on that. So that, again, next year, like I'm already in my insights looking at what is working, what my plan for the first quarter is going to be in terms of my social media. Because I don't just want to wing it and guess and think, right, this is cool, I think this would be good. Mate, last year I had 1,600 followers. If you look at my account now, I have 570 odd, because I deleted over 1,000 followers. So I was like, a lot of these are PTs who just want to follow a fitness account so the fitness account follows them back. There's a lot of spam. There's a lot of people that don't engage or don't even watch my stuff. So it's pointless having them on there. And then there's a lot of friends or acquaintances that any story or poll is just in joke after in joke after in joke. And I'm like, I don't need this really. this is just now for my, like, some personal elements in there, but this is just now for my business, and these people are not going to serve my business. So imagine an influencer doing that, deleting their fucking followers. But it was invigorating. It was amazing. Cleansing in some way before. I was like, you don't need to see my shit, so fuck off. You know?
I totally agree with that. It's like how much of this is genuine, real followers that can actually help drive you forward as a business. And I think like my goal to 2022 is very much a similar thing. If you saw my post today, it was like, help me help you. But I don't know how much response I'm going to get with that feedback form, but it's like I want to have a lot more clarity in terms of like, I don't want to put out stuff that I think are good, because like I want to help people, and it's similar stuff to you, and you know your target market well, and the more you know it, the better your content is going to get. It's probably going to be a variety of content, not just carousel after carousel after carousel after carousel. Like on the Christmas chat, I think, you know, it's I've actually got a really busy Christmas, despite it being. I think Ellie's filled up my Christmas because she's more homesick this year, being the third year she hasn't gone back.
Yeah,
that's why Disneyland yesterday, and then we have Christmas Eve dinner and drinks tomorrow. Then Christmas Day, we've got a meal out. So, and then a board game day on Boxing Day. So I've actually got stuff quite filled out. But like yourself, I think a lot of next week, when I get a bit of time, it's going to be right. Let's start planning the first quarter of next year. Let's get really, really clear on what my audience want, and how can I really, really, really niche down into speaking to a specific kind of person. And that's sort of my thing. Like this year, I think a lot of the business has gone good. It's a new brand, and it's obviously going to be teething troubles. But a lot of my stuff is like, I want to be less feeling like I'm hitting and hoping, and I want to make sure that I can actually serve the people that are actually investing their time in following me. And that's what I'm going to spend a lot of time on. Like one of the things I might invest in next year, you know, Ali Abdal? If not, follow him on YouTube. He's really good. Productivity tips, things like this. He does a part-time YouTuber Academy course, which was how to get the most out of YouTube. And I'm certainly going to look at doing the February intake, which will be the first course other than the OTE that I've done that's not my craft related directly.
Sure.
Quite exciting.
It's cool. Well,
so last love to close off as a closing question. What do you have any New Year's resolutions? And if so, what are they?
Resolutions. My two resolutions come in the form of like quotes / phrases. One is by a guy called Dr. I heard a guy, whether he came up with it or not, I don't know. This guy I listened to called Dr. John DeMartini, who's, we've scrapped John DeMartini. He's amazing, but it's not him. It was Joe Dispenza, who said, need to start living a life that is defined by a vision of the future rather than the memories of the past. One of the things I've done, I put this on my Instagram the other day, so it resonated quite well with people, is that one of the biggest things I've done wrong this year is I keep living in the past. I keep reverting back to past defaults, past emotions, and my focus is there rather than what I could be doing forward. So one, it's to live a life defined by a vision of the future rather than memories of the past. And number two, which I heard this morning on the Modern Wisdom podcast, and these several words hit me hard, is to live a life by design. Life should be lived by design, not by default, because our defaults are shit. So start creating, be the architect of what you want. So I'm going to be, how does it actually work into New Year's resolutions? What I need to do with my business, personality, relationships, etc., is start creating new things, new experiences, meet new people, new elements of my business that I've not done before. Double down on what is working as well, because that's your baseline. But not saying no to anything, because I always said no to it before.
I love them. They're really good. And that one about like focus on the future rather than the past really resonated with me. Because I think very similar to you in very different things. Mine was a toxic relationship with my work rather than it was a divorce. But it's equally things that have taken a big part of your life that you're saying goodbye to. And it's hard. It's easier said than done to let these things go. And I think that's something that I'm gonna steal and take on a New Year's resolution, because I think that would benefit me massively. I think for me, a lot of what I'm doing. One, I want a successful reverse diet. I want to generally go into the next year having a true investment in my physique. So I can diet. I've done it millions of times. I've just done it now. And I'm not necessarily saying that I'm going to be dieting through Christmas, but I want to be able to maintain close enough to my physique through Christmas that I can actually now invest some time in my physique long term next year. And I want to put out one YouTube video a week. No, I'm going to say 2 YouTube videos a week, because one of them would always be the podcast recording. So I don't want to have a cop out and say, I'll just put up the podcast recording up and that's it. I want one unique video a week, and they'll start rubbish, but if I keep doing them, I will get better at it.
Exactly. That's it. So you do it.
Sweet. Well, man, this has been a lot of fun. This has been a nice, unique episode. Yeah, thank you for allowing me to get drunk on a podcast like Joe Rogan. All I need is marijuana and I'm good to go. But as always, for anyone who wants to know more about you, because you do give a lot of good content, funny content, polarizing content. So if anyone wants to hear more about you, where do they find you?
Find me on the easiest place. Find me on Instagram, where the handle is Rob with 2 B's, Rob Core, like core, the only way you would spell core with an E on the end. Rob Core on Instagram. That's the main hub of my business. You can find me on Facebook at fatlossfastlane.com, but I'll be brutally honest, it's just a copy of my Instagram stuff because I can't stand Facebook.
Yeah.
If you want my more polarizing opinions, find me on Twitter under my own name, Robb Mcgeary. But you're not going to get the best value out there. You're just going to get my opinion more than anything else. But that's the place to find me. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for coming on, man. Have a fantastic Christmas. Obviously, we'll probably catch up in the meantime and speak soon.
100%.